Thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Our focus today is the way in which the Tesla Semi is driving Daimler trucks slash cars insane. Because as you know, the Semi hasn't arrived in Europe, but there are a whole bunch of rules that have been modified to embrace the arrival of the Semi, which Daimler and other truck manufacturers in Europe has to abide by, but they don't have the capability of the Tesla Semi. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, would like some more ideas on better investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. And like and subscribe is also greatly appreciated. So each week we try to pick up on what's new trends that are going on with the Tesla Semi as it comes to market. There's a theme that we're following over the next few weeks where we're looking at the impact of the Semi on a variety of truck manufacturers. Last week we actually kind of looked at what was going on in Canada between the Freightliner division of Daimler and the folks at BYD as well as Tesla. This week's show, we're taking some time to look at what's going on in the German market for sure, but more the EU more broadly. So something happened about 2 years ago. The previous CEO for the large corporation called Daimler-Benz Corporation had some very interesting comments. What he shared was that there's this problem going on, which is that the EU was starting to issue penalties, particularly on trucks, as a way to force large manufacturers to move away from diesel and other heavy pollutants into electric or possibly even the hydrogen fuel cells as a way to reduce emissions. So one of the things he pointed out is that the process of the fines was designed to increase over time so that if the manufacturer is elected not to make the change, they have to pay a lot of money later to solve the problem. So it's my belief that one of the reasons why Daimler trucks and Daimler cars split up was the fines on truck, because they pollute more, would end up being extremely severe to the car side of the business. So by separating the two, you have this ability to sort of reduce the impact of those fines that they're enduring as they figure out the whole electric space. So the problem with Tesla and Daimler is the more successful Tesla is with valid solutions, it totally screws up the Daimler situation. There are a whole bunch of examples of how this is going to work, but two examples that come to mind are, number one, as you'll notice when you look at the Tesla Semi from the front, it has an extended nose. If you look at the vehicle behind me, as you can see, most of the European vehicles have a cab over technology, which results in a flat nose. So the Europeans, actually EU, changed rules to allow this Semi to exist, if you will, in its current format, because they wanted the advantages that it represented. In particular, you get an aerodynamic advantage from that nose, but by having cab over technology, it allows you to have a longer truck cab, which means you can carry more freight than in theory you would have with the Tesla. Another item is that Tesla Semi Tesla has applied for in the EU, and particularly Germany, the right to operate semis on Sundays. Because of the pollution and noise, many of the city centers had gotten the right to cease heavy truck operations on Sunday because of pollution and noise. And with the Semi not making that noise, Tesla's in the process of getting permission to run those trucks. So the interesting part of what's going on right now is that Daimler, which is 40% of the truck market share globally, and in Europe they're at that number as well, they've come up with something called the e-Actos. So we would call it a Class 7 truck. And what we've read in a lot of publications is that their e-Actos, electric Actos truck is coming in at 3 times the cost of their ICE vehicles, even though in theory they're getting about 300 miles for that vehicle. So what we're generally seeing is that an ICE truck is about $130,000. The numbers we're getting currently are $250,000 for a Tesla Semi that goes 500 miles. Again, the e-Actos is capable of a 20,000 pound payload, whereas the Tesla Semi is up in that 40,000 pound payload zone, costs less, more range, etc. So what we're covering today is the sort of insanity plan that Daimler is on as they try to close the gap on the Tesla Semi. Now, one of the most famous comments that articulate the point about this insanity argument is Martin Daum is still the chairman of Tesla, or of Daimler's truck division, which split off from the cars. And one of his famous quotes from 4 years ago in the Wall Street Journal is that physics operates the same way in Germany as it does in Silicon Valley. So therefore, the operations of their trucks should be comparable to what Tesla is doing because, they're using the same principles they're operating from. Well, I think his comment definitely makes sense because kind of what he was saying is there's no way a Tesla Semi goes 250 miles goes 500 miles for 250K when the best that we can do globally is as the top manufacturer of trucks globally can only do 250 miles, and we're charging our customers $400,000 for those vehicles. So we're kind of in this very interesting zone where Elon kind of talked about the fact that he likes having experts, on the manufacturing floor running companies versus having MBAs. And so in the case of Mr. Daum, the question would have to come up, number one, does he know how to program? And how many programming classes has he taken? How many languages does he know? Number two, what is Daimler's exposure to leading edge technology at every front? So it could be programming, it could be chip design, it could be, one of my favorite fields that I just know a tiny bit about, but I always find it interesting, is material science is huge. So one of the reasons right now that everyone is having difficulty matching up to Tesla is that Elon, not totally, but basically has a PhD in material science as well as all the other things he does. And what this allows then is they're getting to all kinds of new materials for vehicles, for battery packs, for everything. And it's affecting the management of sort of those spaces by Tesla to its advantage. So I have to say that as I watch Daimler do their thing, I'm having to scratch my head. And the reason is that, okay, I don't know if you guys recognize this, but if you look at the truck behind me, above the driver's head, that flange that rolls above the driver, above the truck, according to a friend of mine who worked on it at Vandy, he indicated that reduces fuel consumption by 5%. That's why all the trucks now have it. Now, there are things like skirts on the bottom of the truck. There are all these new things that people have done. Well, one of the head scratchers is, have you noticed that the e-Cascadia has pretty much the same body as the regular Cascadia, whereas Tesla has really worked on its aerodynamics. Now, is it a 5% range advantage? Yeah, probably. Is it 10%? Probably not. But what I want to get across here is how can Daimler not have licensed the technology to have a modification of the tractor body to embrace the new space that goes with it. So as you may recall, Tesla has the driver sitting in the middle, not on the door. And the reason is that by changing the position of the driver, it allows you to, in essence, punch in the sides of the truck to allow for better aerodynamics. So I think this is kind of a shocker because my knowledge of wind tunnels and how they're used is simply, hey, take everybody's product, throw it in there, and look at the difference of how the wind flows across it and the impact that wind flow has on what they're seeing. So in the case of Daimler, they've done this thing where they put really cool lights on the outside of the truck that come on that tell you it's an electric vehicle, but they haven't taken the time to actually aerodynamically redo the cab of the tractor to improve its aerodynamics. So, basically, if you're going 500 miles and you get 10% better gas mileage because of the different body here, that's 50 miles extra. That's a lot of cost savings that can make a difference for your end user. But Daimler seems to be stuck in its, we'll just figure out the better technology to catch up, and we're not going to make every effort to identify everything necessary to modify our vehicle to be competitive with Tesla going forward. You could argue, hey, what's 50 miles? What if that 50 turned into 75 miles? Not a big deal, but the thing about it is those vehicles, when they're putting on 300,000 miles for a year, all of those incremental savings can actually add up. So I consider this the insane show relative to Daimler because they're really lucky that right now they still have the marketplace to themselves in Greater Europe, and they don't have to directly compete with the Tesla Semi. The issue, though, is that as Tesla ramps next year its production, all of these incremental advantages will add up and result in Tesla selling a ton of trucks. We also should note that one of the other things that's going on is because Daimler can't offer that 500-mile range, it's more of a reason, so that the percentage of their customers that they're pushing towards hydrogen is greater because they can't offer them the range they need to, move heavy goods over mountains, etc. And so this is kind of interesting as well because Elon has been talking about the fact that, the usable range that he's working on is 250 miles, which is 70% of the freight needs of most corporations. So in essence, you're talking about 250 miles out and 250 miles back is the ballparking it sense of what's being offered. In the case of Daimler, they're more offering 100 and, on the Freightliner, it's 125 miles in and out. So your radius that you can cover is smaller. And they're arguing that when you go beyond that, you just go to hydrogen fuel cells and that solves that problem. If Tesla is able to offer that 500 miles and pick up 70% of the delivered goods, even in mountainous areas in this manner, that will drive Daimler insane because they basically have all these customers that want that solution and they cannot deliver it. And, there have been other interesting techniques used, like, for example, certain freight routes where an electric truck can stay attached like a bus would to an overhead electric facility that they can travel on over time. So we're a bit digressing here, but in general, what we wanted to focus on in this show is the fact that Tesla Semi has not arrived in Europe yet, but the impact on the industry has definitely arrived, and it's arrived in the form of the EU. I have to say that I am very surprised by all of this because Daimler/Germany really relies on cars and trucks as one of its principal job creators. And to have Tesla come in and potentially deliver new products that wipes out large numbers of jobs, not only in the car space, but now in the truck space is brutal. There are a lot of environmental folks that are pushing those car companies to make this move, but they just don't have Tesla's capability, which means that you have large numbers of people that rely on those auto jobs across parts, across the actual delivered vehicles, etc. And it's kind of brutal for what's coming to Germany, particularly as we start to deliver the Tesla Semi to that space. So we really look forward to your comments on this. Yes, indeed, Tesla's driving the truck market to insanity domestically, and it's begun to do so in Germany as well. It'll be interesting to see how and what the response might be going forward. Next, we want to review our health tips with you. Just a reminder, 25 leg lifts a day per leg to allow you to strengthen the quad muscles so we don't have any issues with the knees. Also wanted to encourage you to consider a 20-minute walk each day to address that, and also having a professional ear cleaning once a year is recommended, as well as having your eyes examined to determine if there's a anticipated glaucoma or other things that might affect you going forward. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, lehit rot, namaste, zdravstvuyte. And in Germany, in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks and have a great day, and bye for now.